I should have had this review pulled up before I even started to record. I was just checking the time because let's see how long it'll take me to get through these 4 reviews today. Did I just knock this crooked? I had it straight. It is what it is. Sitting right here. Oh my gosh. Anybody else like those sensory issues? I just cannot stand stray hairs just poking me in my face. That's one reason why I'm always touching my hair. It drives me crazy. Usually I'm starting with, this is so crooked. Usually I'm starting with a sip of water. We got nutrition protein shakes today. Summer Heat by Defne Suman. Side note, as I said, I wasn't in the mood to ramble. My sister finds the most ridiculous cards. And German Shepherds. I love German Shepherds. It's my favorite dog breed. Never owned a German Shepherd, but it's my favorite dog breed. And so she found this really wonky, he's a little touch looking, ain't he? She got this in Denver, Colorado. Anyway, Summer Heat by Defne Suman. That is today's book review. And this was sent to me by K Publicity. K Publicity has been sending me at least maybe 1 to 2 books a year since 2021. And at this point, they know my taste. And so they sent me a Defne Suman book back in 2021, which is the first book they sent me. It was the first time Defne Suman had been published in English. Here it is. From Turkish. She's a Turkish author. And the first one they sent me was The Silence of Shahrazad, which is, that's a family kind of like saga type story. You have 4 families who are all their stories are, interwoven during, the fall of the Ottoman Empire. So you can see this is not what of course, the book looks like now. This is the proof, but I enjoyed it. She has another book that's been published in English that I haven't read yet, but this was her most recent book published in English, Summer Heat. That is enough rambling. This hair is driving me crazy. Let's dive in. Maybe this is what it means to have a native land, a large family with a common fate and a shared grief. So in Summer Heat, we get a first-person narrative told by Melike. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And Malike's Turkish family harbors layers of secrets, and it actually isn't until 3 decades after Turkey's occupation of Cyprus in 1974 that Melike begins to peel back her family's history. She meets a younger named Petro, and what starts as Melike once again venturing down into a path of infidelity. So she is a married woman in her 40s, but she has not been faithful to her husband at all. And she, at the beginning of the story, she makes it known that she's going to stop doing that. But again, then Petro comes along and that gets thrown out the water. I'll get into that a little bit later, because Suman, the infidelity is part of one of the overarching themes, and she did it really well. But this situation with Petro forces our main character to confront and then process why she is so unfaithful. Where does this issue really stem from? And so therefore she must explore the family life, her childhood, what happened in her family in order to connect these dots. So Melike spends a lot of the narrative reflecting on her childhood memories as she's piecing together her past with the present. So some people say that flashbacks, I'm trying not to cough. Excuse me. Let me take a sip of water, not protein shake. I said this in a previous video. I'm currently in a caloric surplus, and oh my gosh, I get to eat whatever I want, and it's fabulous. I'm not even a junk food eater, but if somebody puts like a donut or something in my face right now, I'm eating it. Oh my gosh. Anyway, taking care of your body is a full-time job. Okay. Oh my gosh, where was I? Okay, so I remember where I was. So this is a story in which the narrator is bouncing back between the early 2000s and her childhood in the 70s. And some people say that flashbacks are too cliche, don't do it. But anything in the right author's hand, it's just going to work. And it works here. So we get these flashes back in whole chapters going over Malike's childhood, and then making these connections to her behavior and what she's experiencing with her family and those strained relationships in the present. So obviously memory is a theme in this novel, and it's really not a theme that I ever get tired of seeing in literature, because we all have memories, and we all go back and look at those memories. We all feel nostalgic about certain things. And so I think that other than love, it might be the most relatable theme in a novel, in my opinion. Again, we all have memories, some pleasant, some not so pleasant, but it's because of these memories and how we choose to commemorate them, remember them, or forcibly try to not remember them, that shape up our own stories and how we view the world around us. Also, there are sights, sounds, smells that can trigger a memory that we've had forgotten or we thought we buried. And so what are you to do when some very uncomfortable memories come to the surface and you're forced to reckon with it? And this is what this main character is dealing with. Where had all these memories, the clocks, Safinas, come from? That's her grandmother. They were like ghosts risen from the dead. My childhood had come to a premature end and was now just a series of sad memories. So Malike's family, even as a child, she knew that something was off. Her relationship with her parents, you see it strained throughout the years. And so when there is discord in the family unit, or even in a surrounding environment, remember we have an occupation going on between countries and governments, children absorb more than adults give them credit for. And which is strange, because we were all children at one point, and I think that sometimes adults can forget what it was like to be a child. And so Suman highlights through Malike's childhood memories just how much weight children carry, especially when they don't understand the full context. And they feel burdened by these things that happened to them in their youth, even if they really were not responsible for it. They were at the whim and the mercies of the adults in their lives. And it is unfair, I think, for adults to not address these things with their children and to make sure that they emphasize it wasn't you, right? But, again, I think that adults can sometimes forget just how emotionally mature children are, even if they can't always articulate it when they're younger. But we weren't allowed to get angry with the psychologically damaged mother. We had to tiptoe around her. Doors couldn't be slammed. We had to talk quietly. So Mom, lift this burden of shame from my shoulders and set me free. It was so hard not to say Mom. Okay. Even though I have my mom saved as Mom in my phone as a joke. As I already hinted at in the summary, Malike meets Petro, who's Greek. Malike is Turkish. And she allows herself to be swept away from this man who is her junior, actually. So she's in her 40s. I believe this man is in his late 20s. And again, despite being a married woman, she goes into this situation anyway. And so, however, Petro is actually connected to her family. And how he's connected is a spoiler, so I'm not going to say how, of course. But it's through this connection that the author is presenting one of my favorite topics in lit, fate and coincidence. Does fate exist? Are there such things as coincidences? Or are we all part of a script? Or are there just certain things that are destined to make out and to play out? Are there certain connections that will happen and they're meant to happen? And there are certain connections that are supposed to be in your life, whether it makes sense to you or not. Ah, Malika, you disregarded all the signs. You ignored the voice inside your head, which whispered that your meeting with this stranger would alter the course of your fate. Life was made up of such weird intersections. For those elements that had brought this moment into existence to have come together was even more complicated than the most complex puzzle I knew. If just one element had been different, this moment of ours would have been lost to the darkness of the universe. The game being played was larger than you, than me, than the two of us, than all of us. We played the roles assigned to us. One reason why I always pull out that theme when I see it in a novel is because there are a few situations in my life, just over the years, where I look and I'm thinking, if I hadn't done this and this person hadn't done this, this would have never crossed paths. Or if this hadn't happened, if I hadn't gone that route, if I hadn't made this decision and done X, Y, and Z, I would never have known this person. And it makes my brain hurt, but in a good way. And so through this concept of fate and coincidences, or, what's really happening here, you can argue that the author is arguing that Malika and Petro, their paths needed to cross. Because if their paths hadn't crossed, she wouldn't have been forced to confront her own behavior, certain elements of her past that she had tried not to think about, and, really assess her own morality as a character. So one thing I do like about this main character is that she's really actually very self-reflective. She's willing to go down that rabbit hole and say, I'm not the most savory person sometimes. And do that self-reflection, examine the messy parts, and then do better. So Malika in particular, she meditates on the differences between love and conquest. Again, she's had many affairs outside of her marriage. And, she realizes that she behaved in this manner and a way to put a Band-Aid over a wound. We never know when or how love will come into our life. We think the decision to love is ours. What I loved was the game, not love itself. The truth was that she had sex in order to forget. That might even be the only reason she had sex. She thought she would find love in each embrace, but then, afraid of the rejection and delusion that might follow, she moved straight away. Petra was right. Seducing men was my way of numbing the pain, my coping mechanism. I'd been doing that since way back then. Over the years, I'd become an expert. I didn't even notice I was doing it anymore. So this is going to transition nicely into the last thing I want to cover. And it has to do with the patriarch of this novel, which is her father and her father's absence. So her father left her and her brother and her mother when, her and her brother were children. And it left a void that just could not be filled. And so the void left from the abandonment of a parent, whether that person is actually physically present or not, you can be disconnected from a parent because there's no emotional connection. That person is physically there, but they're not emotionally there. And then you can have a person who's just physically absent, and there's no communication there. So it is something that I think will always leave a mark. I felt a yearning for something, for someone. It came from deep inside of me, and I didn't even know who it was I was missing. Why had it never occurred to me that I might more fruitfully find the attention I'd repeatedly sought in beds of countless men in a newly established relationship with my father? Again, this is a very self-aware character. She is, and that's why I liked her. Did I always agree with her actions? No. But by the end of the novel, we do have a character who is going to make an effort to change some of her behavior. I read Summer Heat in the summer, obviously. Again, this was sent to me, and when books are sent to me, I want to make sure that I get around to them. Even if I don't get around to them immediately, I'm going to read it and then review it. But this is the perfect book to read during the summer. I mean, there are scenes of Greece and Turkey during the summer and the foods that they're eating and the heat and the humidity. And even though the topics are not necessarily the most leisurely topics, there is something about this book that is compulsive. There's something about this book that is compulsively readable. And again, this is my second novel by this author, and I definitely need to pick up the third. She writes very fascinating female leads, I think. Like in this other book that I talked about earlier, or I mentioned at the beginning of the video, that's not always the most savory female character either, but she's fascinating. Like I can't look away. And they can be messy at times, but in a way that you're still rooting for the main character, even though you may not necessarily always agree with them. It's not a shallow summer read, even though I think there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes people just want fluff in the summer as they're sitting poolside. I totally get it. But if you still want something with some meat and potatoes, I had a supervisor who used to say that. She was like, give me some more meat and potatoes. Give me something hearty. There are some interesting themes here to explore. And I devoured it compulsively. Like I could just sit and it was a quick read for me. I do love a good family drama. I don't like drama in my own life, but the stuff comes up because you're breathing. You're gonna have to deal with life and situations and people. But overall, I live a drama-free life. But I will devour it in a book. Okay, don't we all? But in real life, I'm like, my name is Bennett. I ain't in it. My name is Lee. I can't see. Not my circus. Not my monkeys. I want nothing to do with it. Leave me alone, right? But in a book, I'm going to eat that stuff up, okay? And again, I'm always a fan of a main character that's going to develop and change. I like it. And, it actually doesn't even bother me sometimes when the character doesn't develop and change, because how many people do we know in our own lives? They don't change, but I do love a good character development. And so this book was right up my alley. I really enjoyed it. Again, translated from the Turkish. I need to get the second published book from her. I can't remember what it was, what the title of it is, that's been published in English. And I look forward to more Defne Suman published in English. Also, if you are a fan of literature that takes place in Turkey, Greece, Old Ottoman Empire, that section of the world, Defne Suman, check her out. I gave this a 4 out of 5. And yes, have you heard of this author? Are you interested in summer heat? Yeah. What else? Ooh, my brain is blanking. Yes. Always feel free to like, subscribe, leave me a comment. Feel free to follow me on Instagram where I get up to more book shenanigans. I actually post all of my book content there first. I actually only post in my static feed once a week, and that's book-related content. And in my stories, that's where I post my updates on what I'm reading, what I've just finished, and sometimes the occasional funny reel or meme, because we all need a good, healthy laugh in life. I get this question occasionally. Do I have a Goodreads? No. Ain't nobody got time for that. It's enough for me to keep up with YouTube and Instagram. I do not have a Goodreads, and I will never have a Goodreads. And with that, that was kind of abrupt, wasn't it? With that, I will see you in the next one. Bye.